Hi YouTube, welcome back to my channel. I wanted to talk today about three products I bought from the NYX range, which is a fairly budget-friendly makeup range, very easily obtainable in drugstores in the States. It is available over here in the UK and I'm guessing the rest of Europe. But not quite as easy to get your hands on. And I actually have only bought these products because Selfridges have started stocking NYX, or they certainly had a whole mini counter devoted to them when I happened to go in about a month or so ago, probably a bit more than that. I'm not sure whether it was a kind of pop-up counter or whether they're permanently going to stock them. Anyway, they were selling like hotcakes, primarily, I have to say, judging from the people swarming around the counter by people a good deal younger than me, I guess because of the very reasonable price points. And they had makeup, which I didn't look at too carefully. I have bought it in the States when I've been visiting before, and the eyeshadows are okay. Palettes are very nicely laid out, but, you know, I'm not really a drugstore fan. But I thought I'd try a few of their kind of more, I'm going to say specialist products, problem solvers, as it were. And I thought it might be interesting to compare these products with more high-end products where possible. So that's why I haven't said anything about these in the last kind of month, 6 weeks since I bought them, because I have actually been vaguely scientifically, in the sense of alternating between a NYX product and a high-end product, testing them out. So the first product I wanted to talk about was the NYX Pore Filler, which is described as a magical agent to minimise the look of pores and create a smooth porcelain doll-like finish, which you can wear as a base to your makeup. Now, I think, as I've already mentioned, open pores are becoming one of my bugbears. I had very combination skin when I was younger. To be truthful, it's more dry all over now. But as a consequence of the oiliness in the T-zone from my younger years, and I think partly by over-aggressive facials that I had at that time before I started going to a dermatologist, I have quite open pores in the crease of my chin, and open pores with some broken capillaries at the corners of my nose. And they bother me a little bit. They bother me more since I got one of those illuminating magnifying mirrors and could see them a lot more clearly than I ever could in my ordinary bathroom mirror when I was putting on my makeup. And what actually bothers me most is that when I put on makeup, foundation, which overall improves the tone and appearance of my skin, tends to sit in those open pores, and I really dislike how that looks, almost more than when my face is unmade up, because it kind of looks dirty, if you know what I mean. You can definitely see the makeup in those pores, and I'm not keen on that. So that's quite a long and drawn out description of my pore problem, and I've been looking at ways to improve that appearance. And part of it is, I think, through good quality foundation and powders, but also looking at kind of primers. So the product that I have been comparing the NYX Pore Filler with is the vastly more expensive. I think this came in at, I'm going to say £9 or thereabouts, certainly under £10. It was one of the more expensive NYX products, but it was definitely under a tenner. And the Tom Ford Complexion Enhancing Primer, which I read did great things for the appearance of pores. I'm going to say this is about £56. It's a really, really expensive product, and I've talked about it in a separate video. Now, I have taken to using the Tom Ford purely around the nose and the chin area. In other words, not as an overall primer, because I don't think it's that stunning to justify wasting such expensive product. But I do think it makes the difference in filling in the pores and helping the foundation not to sink into them in an obvious way. And so I've been trying out the NYX Pore Filler in exactly the same way. Now, in terms of pleasantness to use, the NYX, unlike the Tom Ford, which isn't, of course, marketed solely as a pore filler, is slightly different. Obviously, much, much nicer packaging, but, you know, that's not worth the price. You can see, perhaps not that clearly in the monitor, this is more or less sort of cream coloured, colourless, and this is a kind of rosy tinted one because it's meant to be a glowing primer. The consistencies are different. The NYX is very much a silicone based filler. You can definitely feel the slip and slide of silicone very obviously. I've put a bit more of the Tom Ford, so it's a slightly unfair comparison there. The Tom Ford is much creamier. There is definitely a silicone-like agent in there, but there's also a lot more kind of conditioning cream. So there is no doubt that of the two, the Tom Ford feels much nicer. And if you're kind of sensitive to silicone, and I am a little bit, it does tend to make my skin feel a bit itchy, then you will feel it more with the NYX. But they both have the very smoothing, filling effect. In some respects, the NYX slightly more than the Tom Ford. I do have to say that although it's difficult to be entirely scientific about this, and I haven't gone so far as to do one side of my nose in one and one side in the other on a single day's application, I've kind of alternated. Neither of them are much different in how they last. I do think the appearance is slightly better with the Tom Ford. Neither of them completely solve the problem. Certainly under magnification, you can still see the foundation clinging into the pores, but they definitely both improve the appearance, and both of them improve it with a fairly good last, certainly a kind of normal working day, not maybe the sort of hours that I have to do. So although I marginally prefer the Tom Ford, and it's definitely, you know, more prettily packaged and nicer to use, I wouldn't say that I could justify the price difference if I didn't have the money to spend on enjoying this hobby of mine. So the NYX Pore Filler, definitely worth a try. I suppose my one caveat would be a very silicone heavy pore filler can actually cause skin eruptions. I haven't had that, certainly this time, but I have experienced that in the past. And I think definitely if your pore enlargement is due to much oilier skin now, in other words, perhaps if you're a bit younger than me, this could be more of a problem than this, which definitely has a more kind of treatment feel. So the other kind of direct comparison that I tried to do was between two lip primers. Here's the, it always makes me think of kind of Harry Potter's wand. Here's the ridiculously, I think 26 or 29 pound Louboutin lip primer in this ridiculous packaging. Very nice, but tricky to find a drawer that's big enough. Against the NYX lip primer, much simpler. Again, it's kind of twist up pencil. I mean, I think this was under a £5, and this is, you know, not much under £30. There's a variety of colours in this one. And I'm happy to tell you that neither of them, in my view, really work at all in different ways. The NYX is much nicer feel on the lips. It's very slippy. It feels like a kind of lip balm. It slightly blanches the colour of your lips. So if that's what you're looking for before perhaps drawing in false lines, which I would never do, then this might work. But it's really so slippy. I didn't feel it made any difference at all to the longevity of the lipstick on my lips. And it didn't really make any difference to application. I mean, slightly smoothed my lips, but no different to, using a lip balm or anything. And if you're looking at it making your lipstick last longer, I just thought this was totally ineffective. Now, this one, the Louboutin, did make the colour of lipstick last longer in terms of a stain on my lips. But the huge downside with this was it was an incredibly drying product. I mean, just putting it on the lips was difficult because, it's a small bullet, so it's great for lining, but then filling in, there was a lot of scrubbing, and it really magnified every defect, every dryness, every line in the lip. Horrible. Put this on and your lips look 100 times worse than they look without the primer. And then putting the lipstick on top did then kind of add a bit of moisture back to the lip, and so it didn't look quite as bad, but they definitely felt dry underneath. Now, it did make the lipstick cling to the lips a bit longer, definitely prolonged the stain, although I have to say slightly patchily on the days I used it. But that definitely wasn't worth the downside of how it felt and how overall it aged my lips, I felt. So I have to say, I think this is a total waste of money. Just not a good product at all. This one didn't cost very much, was perfectly pleasant, didn't make me look worse, but it certainly didn't improve how my lipstick applied or the longevity. So, maybe lip primers, they just haven't got the science of them yet. I'd be interested to know if anyone has had any experience of good lip primers that they really felt, made a difference to how their lipstick lasted on their lips or how it looked, because I haven't found one. So in terms of comparisons, frankly, you'd be throwing your money away with either of those. You might as well throw it away on the cheaper one, I suppose. I couldn't find a comparison directly for this tinted brow mascara, which was also quite good value. Not quite the right colour for me, but they'd run out of the other shades. I've never really used a coloured brow mascara before. I quite like the idea because it kind of pushes your existing brows into position as well as adding a little bit of discreet colour. And I quite like this product. I would definitely buy another one when it dries out, and it is drying quite quickly. I do find it slightly difficult to apply evenly in that you've really got to hold it this way to do your right hand brow, if you follow, without, getting this bit gunging up. And then you need to really hold it in the other hand to do your left brow, which is a bit awkward if you're right-handed as I am, and presumably exactly the same if you're left-handed. I find it really difficult to do both brows with the shape of the brush and the wet product using the same dominant hand. But, that's just a kind of application issue. The product itself, which I suppose there's no great magic in, was fine. I didn't find it kind of dried and flaked off or anything nasty like that. I had to remove it with eye makeup remover at the end of the day. I think you have to be not too heavy-handed with it, and it may depend how sparse your brows are to begin with. Mine are reasonably full and reasonably looked after in that I have mine threaded quite regularly. But for just kind of general low-level tidying up, this was a good product and very reasonable. So NYX products, definitely worth looking at, definitely worth having a try. I would consider other ones. Equally, nothing absolutely miraculous, but I thought it was just interesting to do some comparisons. Until next time, bye for now.